Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be giving you a look at the early gameplay of the Frost Death Knight in World of Warcraft Legion. This is based on the alpha, and we're all at level 100 currently. Because it's alpha, what I'm focusing on here is gameplay. Is it fun? Is the main concern. This is less about ultra, high-end rating or anything like that. It's just about looking at the core rotation, the core stuff, and how it's going to play. So in terms of how I'm going to do that, well, first of all, we're going to look at the very core abilities, the very core rotation. Then I'm going to take you through every ability. Then I'm going to take you through every talent. Then we're going to take a look at the artifact's weapon, its ability, its passive, and its traits. Before we get into the video, there are a few different changes they have made. First of all, you'll notice all my runes are the same type. They've just got rid of rune types. It's all sort of homogenized now. I thought that would have been crazy. I mean, technically you could just go and do 7 Howling Blasts with the way I've got things set up currently, but it doesn't seem like you're going to want to really do that unless they balance things completely weird. One big concern with the past Frost gameplay was chugging up your killing machine, so here's an example. You're playing two-handed, meaning your priority was on Obliterate. You were spending your runic power though, getting rid of it. You're about to do a Frost Strike, but right as you hit the button, you proc Killing Machine and use it on Frost Strike. Instead of Obliterate, you lose out on damage, you're a sad panda. They've changed it. Killing Machine only affects Obliterate. And then we've also got Rhyme, which means that your Obliterate has a 70% chance of causing your next Howling Blast to be free, cost no runes, because I've just said the same thing twice, and deal 300% additional damage. So the way this spec pretty much overall works is you make sure you're always regenerating a rune, because you can only generate one rune at a time. Hey guys, just adding this in after doing the video, I made a little bit of a mistake. I said that you can only regenerate one rune at a time. Of course, in the current game, you can regenerate one rune of a type at a time. Because they're now all consolidated, you can generate 3 runes at a time. So if I walk in here, do all of my obliterates, you can see that up to 3 runes are regenerating at once. So bear that in mind for the rest of the video, but my point still applies in terms of how you use things and always ensuring you've got runes on cooldown. So if you max, fully cap all of your runes, then obviously that's a bit of a problem, so you always want stuff regenerating. And then you use your procs in the correct order, and you will expand your, your stuff on Frost Strike. That seems to be how it's playing at the minute. So if I was to go up to a target dummy here and start attacking, first of all, of course, we want to apply Howling Blast while we're running in to get the Plague up. Here is a Killing Machine proc, so I do that. It's proc Rhyme, so I do a Howling Blast. I've now got a whole bunch of runic power to use, so I burst through my runic power. And are we going to get another proc? Well, we were at the stage there where I had to use something because I had no runes recharging. And you kind of get these chains of procs where you Obliterate, procs a Rhyme, and, maybe then you get another Killing Machine, so you do another Obliterate, which gives you another Rhyme. And when that happens, the gameplay is quite fast-paced. So overall, this seems to be how the gameplay is, based on what I've seen. Now, I know there were situations in the past game where, Blizzard would have balanced things such that playing the spec as it was ideally designed wasn't really what happened. The last time I properly played Frost was in Mists of Pandaria, though, and not seriously then, so I can't speak 100% to how that's going to be playing out now, but it seems like that's going to be less of a thing. Perhaps. At the very least, what I can say is that their intended gameplay seems to be what I'm showing here. Basically, you use your procs correctly, and then you expand all of your excess runic power on your Frost Strikes. Not being limited by rune type, it doesn't seem to have affected the gameplay that much, and honestly, in many ways, the gameplay, well, it's really quite similar. It is just a little bit different, though. Another change is the Death Strike, of course one of your core abilities, now costs runic power instead of blood runes. Obviously, blood runes don't exist, and it's got a very cool animation. And one thing that I would recommend you guys do is just pay attention to the animation work here. I think it's really particularly beautiful, so Frost DKs are hopefully going to have a lot to like here. And we also have another ability called Remorseless Winter. Costs 2 runes, probably something you'll want to always have up. It does damage to nearby enemies over 20 seconds, and it looks really cool as well. I suppose whether you want to maintain this all the time is just going to depend on how Blizzard balance it. Obviously it's alpha, so we can't really speak too much to that currently. Let's take a bit of a gander at the talents. So, Sub-Zero Killing Machine also causes your next Obliterate to deal an additional 30% damage as frost damage. Now, your mastery is that you do more frost damage overall, and this will be placing more emphasis on correct usage of your Obliterates. And of course, that's only the Killing Machine obliterates, not your regular obliterate. So basically, this makes Killing Machine super important. We then got Icy Talons. Frost Strike hits increase your melee attack speed by 25% for 3 seconds. Refreshing the effect extends its duration, so if you spam a whole bunch of them, the durations will pretty much add up nicely. I wonder if that would encourage you to a state where you basically pull up your runic power, spend it all super quickly, and, time that up with there being some sort of, raid buff or something like that. That actually is possible because there is a way to pull up to 2 Killing Machines and Rhymes in a later talent that I'll show you in a bit. Next we have Without Remorse. Killing Machine now affects Frost Strike, and your auto attacks are more likely to generate Killing Machine, but it isn't yet implemented. So that basically gives you the old Killing Machine, which I didn't really like. I mean, maybe this will be balanced for such a way, whatever. Maybe this will allow for a very different playstyle where you give far less of a crap about Obliterate and it's all about those Frost Strikes. Again, though, that depends on balancing, and it's not yet implemented, so I can't actually test it. Next, Frozen Pulse. Your auto attacks have a chance to radiate intense cold, dealing frost damage to all nearby enemies. It's basically just passive free damage. Then we've got Biting Winds. Increases the chance for Obliterate to trigger Rhyme by 25%, and up to 2 charges of Killing Machine and Rhyme can be stored. I've went with that because I think that this spec has more of a pace to it when I'm getting more rhymes and things like that going on. And being able to store those Killing Machines might support that gameplay that I kind of talked about earlier with the Frost Strikes, extending their duration. It also means that being able to pull that stuff means that if you get super lucky and you proc 2 Killing Machines within a very close period of time and you don't get to use one of them, you haven't actually lost any DPS. Which also means if you're in the situation where you were burning off your runic power and you still wanted to keep on burning it off, but you got a Killing Machine proc, you can actually just wait, continue burning off your runic power, and then just do the Killing Machine because you're actually able to pull it, and it's not like you're at that state where you've already generated 1 Killing Machine, therefore you have to use it in case you get a proc. Then we've got Gathering Storm. Remorseless Winter does 4% more damage with each successive wave. Moving down, Runic Longevity gives you a 7th rune, and the regen rate of runes is increased by 10%. We then got Runic Empowerment. Every time you spend runic power, you have a 1% chance per runic power to activate a random fully depleted rune. And then Runic Corruption. When you spend runic power, you have a 1% chance per runic power to increase your rune regeneration rate for 3 seconds. So basically, this tier is all about your runes. Next up at level 60, we've got March of the Damned, so you become immune to all movement impairing effects and effects that cause you to lose control of your character for 10 seconds on a 1.25 minute cooldown. We've then got Spellbreaker. Increases anti-magic shield's duration by 60% and maximum absorption value by 50%. From what I gather, moving into Warlords, they made anti-magic shields significantly weaker as a part of shifting more of that onto healers and away from DPS players. That seems to bring some of that back, actually. Then we've got Desecrated Ground, so this will corrupt the ground in an 8-yard radius beneath the Death Knight for 10 seconds. When you're standing in that area, you are immune to roots, snares, and effects which cause you to lose control of your character. Alright, next you've got Purgatory, so an Unholy Pact prevents death when you sustain fatal damage, instead absorbing incoming healing equal to the amount of damage prevented lasting 3 seconds. If any of that healing absorption remains when the effect expires, you will die. Basically, you get some buffer time to either get healed up, or perhaps use your death strikes to try to save yourself. We've then got Death Pact, 2-minute cooldown, instantly restores 50% of your maximum health, and absorbs incoming healing equal to 25% of that maximum health for 15 seconds. And then Improved Icebound Fortitude, which will buff up your Icebound Fortitude, reducing its cooldown to 60 seconds and increasing the effect of the damage reduction by 15%. Moving on to 90, we've got Gorfiend's Grasp, just pulls all the targets within 20 yards towards you. We then got Remorseless Winter, which is already an ability, but this is just a buffed version of it, so surrounds the Death Knight with a swirling tempest of frigid air for 8 seconds, chilling enemies within 8 yards for every 1 second. Each pulse reduces their movement speed, stacking up to 5 times, and when an enemy takes a 5th application, an enemy is stunned for 6 seconds. What's odd here is this doesn't talk about any damage, but we've already got a Remorseless Winter here. I kind of wonder what's going on. Maybe this is like a second one that they just need to change the name of. Right now in the alpha, that probably needs to be cleared up. Then Asphyxiate lifts an enemy target off the ground and crushes their throat with dark energy, stunning them for 4 seconds. Functions as a silence if the target is immune to stuns. And moving on to the 100 talents, we've got a new one, Glacial Advance. I believe that's new anyway. Summon glacial spikes from the ground that advance forward, each dealing a bunch of frost damage. So I'll show you what this is like. Basically, it does that. which is pretty cool. It's a little bit like a lurker from StarCraft. Next, we got Defile. Well, you guys probably all know what Defile is like. We'll put it over there, and it'll get really big because it's going to hit things. That's Defile. And then Breath of Sindragosa, which, I don't know, I've never really liked, but from what I gather, it's kind of one of the... Like, if you use it right, it can be really good as, I think, a blood tank. Anyway, that's that stuff covered. Let's talk about our artifact weapon and its pretty cool-looking ability. So, Icebringer. Damaging attacks have a chance to invoke the spirit of the past Lich King, dealing a whole bunch of damage and granting an energizing effect. Basically, it gives you a buff and does some damage. As I fight, you will notice, like, spectral Lich Kings floating towards the target. Next, let's check out the artifact talent tree. So, our very first one, Sindragosa's Fury. You summon Sindragosa, does a bunch of damage in front of you in a 4-yard cone and slows enemies. Let's use it to see what it's like. Okay, I just Remorseless Winter. I'm just going to cancel that so the spell effects are clear. Alright, so here we go. Sindragosa's Fury. Sindragosa sort of pops up, does the thing, and you just saw Nerzul's Spirit go in there, which is the passive for my artifact effects. I think that Sindragosa thing needs a little bit of cleaning up, though, in terms of the graphical effects. Let's have a look at the other traits. So, Blast Radius increases the damage dealt by Howling Blast by 10%. Dead of Winter increases the damage of Remorseless Winter by 5%. By the way, that is per point that you put in there, so that'll be 15%, and the same applies to most of these. Mirror Ball only has 1 rank, but Anti-Magic Shell now clears debuffs when activated. Ice in Your Veins increases the healing of Deathstrike by 100%, while Icebound Fortitude is active. Perhaps that's going to make that Icebound Fortitude talent quite a bit better, because you'll be able to use it more, therefore you'll be able to avail of this effect quite a bit more. Also, this has 3 ranks, so that will eventually be 300% of its base healing. Frozen Skin reduces the damage taken by 9%. Cold as Ice increases your frost damage dealt by 9%, that's when you put 3 points in, of course. Frozen Core, when Pillar of Frost is active, enemies that attack you are automatically ensnared by Chains of Ice. Nothing But the Boots increases the critical damage of Obliterate by 10%. Crystalline Swords, as you attack, ice copies of Deathbringer and Frost Reaper begin to float beside you, and whenever you trigger Soul Blade, the ice blades are unleashed and pierce their foe. Now, I'm a little bit confused, because looking through the spellbook, Soul Blade doesn't seem to exist, and it's not there as a passive, and so what's strange is Soul Blade doesn't appear to exist. It's not in the spellbook. I did a quick search in Wowhead, and I can't see it there. I don't know what's going on there, but basically, whenever you do something, your like, spectral blades will, go and attack the enemy. We've got Bad to the Bone, increases the effectiveness of Razor Ice Runeforge by 50%. Ambidextry increases offhand damage dealt by Froststrike and Obliterate by 10%. Then we've got Overpowered. Your Obliterate has a chance to generate 3 more runic power. That will be 9 once you actually power it up with 3 points. And then Chill of the Grave increases the range of Froststrike by 8 yards. So that means Froststrike is somehow ranged. It's kind of odd. Now then, we've got 2 final big traits. Hypothermia. Every periodic tick of Frost Fever does 10% more damage. And Frozen Soul. When Remorseless Winter expires, a burst of frost damage is released. Damage is increased for each enemy hit during Remorseless Winter. And that is a look at the artifact weapon. I actually forgot to look at the various different abilities when I meant to, so let's do that now. Anti-Magic Shield. It's Anti-Magic Shield. There you go. Asphyxiate. Not really going to do a great deal in a training dummy. We've got Chains of Ice, which is what it is. Control Dead, we all know that. Deathgate takes you back to Arcarus. Death Grip pulls the target towards you. Death Pact we've already covered. Same goes for Deathstrike. Empowered Rune Weapon will empower your rune weapon, immediately activating all of your runes and giving you 25 runic power, so that allows you to go absolutely apeshit crazy. Frost Strike. It's Frost Strike, you all know what that does. Howling Blast applies Frost Fever, does some damage, is an AoE to a degree. Icebound Fortitude, which makes you, a little bit more survivable, immune to stun effects. March of the Damned, that's one of the talents, which again makes you immune to all movement impairing effects and things like that for 10 seconds. Mind Freeze, which is your interrupt. Obliterate, which we've covered. Path of Frost, which is water walking. Pillar Frost, which is, a 20% increase to your strength and grants you immunity to external movement effects, such as knockbacks for 20 seconds. We've got Raise Ally, and then Remorseless Winter, and Strangulate. So, a lot of the similar stuff. This does play pretty darn simply, actually, in terms of... Also worth saying, Dark Sucre is actually something that is just involved in your spec. If I remember correctly, that's a glyph currently. Maybe they changed that in WoD, I wouldn't know if they did. but I'm 90% sure that was a major glyph. Major glyphs are gone from the game. So, yeah, obviously that's just been baked into the spec because Blizzard felt that it was quite fun. So let's just run in here, do some damage. So, you know, we'll do that. We get our proc, we get a rhyme, so we do a Howling Blast. We, you know, expand some of our Frost Strike. Pretty simple stuff, honestly. Not a very hard spec to play at. It's very base level. It's just reacting to procs correctly. And in fact, you know, other than just sort of, well, you know, kind of blowing your load all at once and not being able to take advantage of procs and things like that, it's pretty hard to play this wrong. As an example, though, I could, you know, use every single rune. We will do that, so I'll do this, then, you know, activate my procs. Boom, we get all our runes back. I get to expand loads of runic power. And, of course, we're really lucky and don't get enough procs. But that's kind of how this is playing, based on what I can see here. I think it's decently fun. It doesn't have the most depth ever. It's mostly just don't react to things wrong. You know, ensure you always got something regenerating. That's pretty much it.